People is concerned about the future of WNBA star Sophie Cunningham. It's turning into a trending topic, and everyone online is talking about, will she continue her WNBA career after her newfound fame in society, being nothing more but a social media influencer, now an activist. Will Sophie Cunningham hang up the basketball sneakers for a new career? And I just got to give you guys my personal opinion. I do not believe she will. See, without that,
for every possession of the fourth quarter in Toronto, one visiting player couldn't move without 15,000 people telling her exactly what they thought of her. She didn't.
Sophie Cunningham might be released from her team at the end of the season. Her future is subtly in doubt. Interesting. Does anyone seriously doubt this isn't because of her supporting women's sports?
Flinch. She caught the ball, set her feet, and buried 3 straight threes while the noise kept building around her. By the time the final buzzer sounded, the Indiana Fever had the win, and Sophie Cunningham had given everyone in that building the only answer she was ever going to give: her game. That single road trip.
Worse, the WNBA is potentially about to make what I believe is a monumental mistake. Headline at Yahoo Sports: Sophie Cunningham's future in the WNBA could be in jeopardy. We are getting rid of homophobia. We are eliminating woke welfare for women who refuse to share a locker room with masculinity. Just to be clear, these are rumors. This is speculation, but it's speculation supported by circumstantial evidence. Even though she is loved and respected by normal people, Sophie Cunningham isn't exactly respected by some of her colleagues in the WNBA. From the league's perspective, I'm sure Sophie Cunningham is a nightmare.
Tells you almost everything about where this story stands right now. But to understand how a bench guard averaging under 9 points a game became one of the most talked about athletes in the country, you have to go back about a month to a magazine profile that was never supposed to be political at all. The interview. ESPN sat down with Cunningham for a feature. Nothing unusual about that. Players do these all the time, talk about the season, the grind, the locker room. But somewhere in that conversation, the subject turned to one of the most contentious debates in sports right now: whether biological men should be allowed to compete against women. Site index equals 4-1.
How Sophie Cunningham and her supporters have been treated over the last month. Teenage girls were verbally berated and cussed out by a co-owner of the Seattle Storm sitting courtside. A mother and daughter attending the Fever vs. Dream game in Atlanta that spent thousands of dollars on tickets were told they needed to cover up their XXXY Athletics t-shirts because they were deemed offensive. You have pro-trans protesters outside of the arena berating Sophie Cunningham supporters. Sophie Cunningham has been relentlessly booed in every single arena except her own over the last month. And teams have gone out of their way to promote transgenderism, whether it's the companion cam, whether it's allowing messages specifically to trans Liberty fans, whether that is introducing brand new mascots, one of them having she, they pronouns, you name it. But the WNBA wants you to think that conservatives and Enes Kanter freedom are the problem. If you simply affirmed that the W in the WNBA stands for woman and is defined by an adult human female, this whole issue would be done. But you refuse to do it. The people that have been mistreated the most during the last month have been Sophie Cunningham and
Cunningham called it common sense that transgender athletes should be banned from competing in women's sports. /site, 3 words. That's really all it took. She talked about wanting young girls to feel safe in their own locker rooms. She framed it as protection, not politics. And for a lot of athletes her age, that would have been the end of it. Say it once, let it fade, move on to the next game. That is not what happened. She didn't walk it back. Here's the part of the story that actually explains everything that came after it. Cunningham never softened the statement. No quiet follow-up
with ESPN, where she said she wants to, quote, protect women's sports from trans athletes. You are obsessed with trans people. You are constantly thinking about trans people. And instead of calling it obsession, you call it moral code. get fucked. After getting backlash for parroting transphobic talking points, she doubled down by posting on Instagram with the caption, "I said what I said, big tough girl." Sophie backtracked this week and said that she doesn't want to talk about her dangerous comments, that she only wants to get back to basketball. She's such a pick-me. There has to be a better word for pick-me because it is like venereal nearly. You're willing to sell out little girls so you can get a few comments and you can get a few views. You know what she is? You know that movie Tall Girl on Netflix? She's like if Tall Girl would
Interview about growth or perspective. No vague non-answer designed to make the headlines disappear. She said it. And then when reporters brought it up again, she said it again. In a league, in a sports culture, where athletes are trained almost from childhood to never give anyone a reason to be upset, that kind of consistency is rare enough to be.
Cunningham in the WNBA has been attacked as a MAGA Barbie for saying it's common sense for men to not be in women's sports and locker rooms. Is the president following this story, and has he reached out to her?
I don't believe he has reached out to her. I know he is following the story. As you know, this is something the president feels strongly about as well, and the American people do too, that men should not be playing in women's sports. It's completely ludicrous that anyone could support that. It's even more ludicrous that you do have Sophia Cunningham, a female athlete herself, very accomplished in her own right, coming forth and speaking that truth that men shouldn't play in women's sports. We want to protect women and girls, and the backlash she is receiving from Democrats and left-wing figures across the country is astonishing. They are clearly very out of touch with the American public on this issue, which again is an 80-20 issue. It's common sense. It's rooted in basic biological fact that men should not be competing against women.
Become its own story. And it did. What could have been a single day of headlines turned into something that's now stretched across an entire season. When it left the building, a basketball opinion doesn't usually make it past the post-game press conference. This one didn't stay there. It reached cable news. It reached political commentators. It reached the White House, where the
reporter about some of the boos. People were booing her, obviously, because people suck. Like, what's her reaction to people in the audience who are booing her? And she is just so centered, you know what I mean? And normal. And that, at this point, is worth celebrating.
I want to shout out the Tempo crowd in the city. I think we've had so much fun. It's my first time being in Canada. It's a lot of our first times being in Canada. But the crowd was absolutely amazing. And, you know, I think that's what sports is all about. You're going to get boos, you're going to get cheers. But just the fact that they're so passionate, they're loud, and they're putting on for the city, I think it's amazing. So shout out to you guys for coming out and supporting.
I love her. I have the biggest crush on her right now, you guys.
Yeah, she's amazing. Like, she's the kind of role model you want your daughter to have.
Press secretary weighed in directly, calling the backlash against Cunningham astonishing and praising her willingness to speak on the issue. Somewhere along the way, a player who signs autographs and hits corner threes for a living found her jump shot being discussed in the same conversations as national policy debates.
WNBA team owner cussed out these two 16-year-old girls for supporting Sophie Cunningham. These two girls were sitting courtside at last night's Fever Storm game in Seattle, holding a sign that said, "Thank you, Sophie, for speaking up for girls." But it didn't last long because team minority owner Celeste Keaton came up to them to let them know what she thought. She told the girls, "Jesus loves everybody, and I hope he can forgive you for what you have done." She called them effing insane and said, "God help you." They were asked to take their sign down. You're not allowed to have political signs at WNBA games. But do you know who wasn't bothered? The person next to them. Or these people in the stands. The girls were also berated by this grown man in the stands, shouting to security to take out the trash. The Seattle Storm majority owner issued a half-hearted apology on behalf of the minority owner. There's a circulating report that that owner has also been fined and suspended from attending games. Sophie Cunningham has heard about all this, thanked the girls for standing up, and said they'll be hearing from her soon. She also called the actions of the minority owner embarrassing. But if you go to a WNBA game, be careful what signs you bring, because there's a fine line between what's not allowed.
She never asked for that platform. She answered one question honestly in one interview, and the rest of the country did what it does now. It turned her answer into a referendum. The league got loud, too. And Cunningham wasn't left standing alone in this. Around the same window of time, site index equals 4-1, Minnesota Lynx coach Cheryl Reeve wore a shirt reading
swirl around Sophie Cunningham's future with the Indiana Fever. So no doubt about it, I don't believe Sophie Cunningham will be with the Fever next year. I said this before, I didn't think she was going to be there this year because of the bad press. Now this everything that Sophie Cunningham did this year put the Indiana Fever and the entire league on notice. I'm sticking by it. I think they're going to try to Colin Kaepernick her, bro. I really do. It goes on to say the 30-year-old guard who joined the Fever in 2025 after 6 years with the Phoenix Mercury signed a 1-year deal for 2026 that ends soon, fueling speculation about her exit. Her summer ESPN comments warning to protect young girls from competing against biological men, which she called common sense, drew cheers from spectators and boos at games. Backers highlights her three-point shooting, enforcer style, and broad apparel, arguing the WNBA needs her more than she needs it amid rumors tied to her view.
Kids belong during a nationally televised game against the Fever, and told reporters that a small but vocal group of people were manufacturing an issue that didn't reflect where most of the country actually stood. /site fans in that same arena waved trans flags on the broadcast. So this was never just one player against silence. It became two sides, standing in the same buildings, holding up their own signs. Outside other Fever Road games, that split got even more visible. Groups organized real rallies, supporters showing up with signs thanking Cunningham for speaking up for girls. Activists from groups like XXXY Athletics and the LGB Courage.
Sophie Cunningham, she didn't even say it a few weeks ago. She said it a few months ago, Dana, in an interview. She did not come out to be political. She just said, yeah, I think young girls, she didn't even talk about the WNBA. She said, I think young girls deserve to have locker rooms in sports that are free from males. That's sort of how she said it. And it's just become this whole thing from the league. And, they state in their rule book that the league is for women, but they fail to define what a woman is. And Enes Kanter Freedom's shirt clearly defines what a woman is. And apparently that's offensive to the league. I don't understand. Well, I do understand why they won't just do what the WTA and the IOC has done, which is to say the women's league is for women and we're going to test for sex. Their only way out at this point is through. They need to do that. And but their agenda is all about politics and not about
coalitions standing outside arenas, making their case directly to fans walking in. At one of those games, a WNBA team co-owner reportedly confronted two teenage girls sitting courtside simply for wearing shirts referencing the debate, a moment that generated its own wave of coverage, separate from anything Cunningham had said herself. This wasn't a story staying contained to social media anymore. It was showing up in parking lots before tip-off. The rumor that changed the conversation. And then, this week, a new layer got added to all of it. A conservative commentator posted that he'd heard reports Cunningham might be let go by the Fever at the end of the season, and he connected it directly to the ESPN comments, suggesting the front office wanted distance.
Weeks ago, Sophie Cunningham said that men should not play in the WNBA, and apparently people are still mad about it. A lot of fans in Toronto were booing her, and every time she touched the ball, you heard this.
Yeah. Hearing the boos as she touches it, gets that playoff race. When you just look at how tight.
But just a minute after she checked in, she already silenced the crowd.
Deep three. You bet.
And look at her celebration towards the crowd. I'm still kind of confused why people are mad about what she said.
10 of them in the game. Cunningham.
From the type of fan base she'd attracted. Now, to be completely fair here, because the facts matter more than the outrage, that post didn't come with a named source, and nobody in the Fever organization has confirmed anything like it. Cunningham is simply heading into free agency on the calendar she's always been on, the same as a lot of WNBA veterans this offseason. It is entirely possible this is nothing more than online speculation attached to a real and complicated situation. But possible or not, the rumors spread instantly. And the reaction told you just how personal this has become for her fan base. Some pointed straight to her relationship with Caitlin Clark. Site index equals 8-1. Cunningham has been openly protective of Clark on the floor before, once retaliating physically after a scuffle involving her teammate/Site, and speculated that Clark herself would push back hard.
In that story with ESPN, you talked about wanting to protect young girls who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Just can you expand your viewpoint on that?
I mean, I think I said what I said. I think it's kind of common sense. And I think I'll always believe in that. I think it's really important to protect children. And that's, little girls, who are also involved in that category. And so, I stand on what I said, and, I always believe that.
Yeah. Do you see your advocacy on that, like, taking any form going forward?
You know, I don't know. I'm not a very political person, but I do have beliefs. I have morals, and I'll always stand on those and be true to who I am. And, I think people are going to take it how they want to take it, but I've never even really said anything about that. And so, when it comes just to protecting young girls in sport and women in sport, I feel very strongly about that. I think that's why you have Title IX. That's why, you have some of the greats in women's sports. If Title IX and women's sports weren't protected, then you wouldn't hear about any type of women in sport. And so, I think in the future, it's just really, important to protect.
Even threatened to walk away from the team if Cunningham were actually let go. Whether that's true is impossible to know. What's true is that it's being said out loud by real fans in real numbers. Why this one won't fade. Every season, some story tries to be the WNBA controversy for a few days before the news cycle moves on. This one hasn't moved on. It's been building for a month, and if anything, it's picking up speed. Part of that is Cunningham herself. She's not hiding from any of it. Not the interview, not the booing, not the rumors. She's letting her play answer the noise, possession after possession, the same way she did in Toronto. And part of it is bigger than her. It's a league where a head coach wears a shirt taking one side of the debate on national television, where fans organize rallies outside arenas over an issue that has nothing to do with the score, where a bench player's personal opinion somehow ends up in a White House briefing. Whatever happens with her contract, whether the rumor turns out to be real reporting or just noise that never should have traveled this far, the bigger question is the one hanging over the entire league right now. How much room does professional women's basketball have left for players to say what they actually believe, out loud, without it becoming the whole story? It's also worth saying plainly, this isn't a debate with only one reasonable side. Plenty of players, coaches, and fans who disagree with Cunningham aren't doing it out of hostility toward her. They're arguing that blanket bans erase a small group of athletes based on broad assumptions, not individual cases, and that the loudest voices on both sides of this fight don't necessarily speak for the majority of people actually playing or watching the game. Right now, nobody in Indiana is saying for certain what happens next. But for one night in Toronto, with an entire arena against her, Sophie Cunningham picked up the ball and let it do the talking anyway.